Hi there, I'm Leslie Rock, and I'm going to talk about creating reading, writing, and research assignments for students in English classes. And it also has application for people who are teaching content area courses such as psychology, sociology, biology, physics, any of the courses on the college level. And you could even try this with high school or middle school students. The key is to think about your reading and writing assignments as something that will involve content. And I think that's one thing that teachers often have a hard time with. You kind of want your students to write and you want your students to read, but you end up kind of giving them a mixed bag of reading assignments that don't have any real coherence or any sort of theme. So I like to think about giving my students assignments that are related to a particular content area. And I'm going to use two examples to really illustrate how you could do this on very different levels. First of all, I teach a class that is more of a skills-based class, and it's for freshman students in college, and it's a reading comprehension class, theoretically. Now, I do like to integrate some writing assignments, and so I do this by creating some mini research projects. And one of these research projects is to have students read something from our textbook, our regular reading skills textbook, and then to go find an article in the library. And I have them use the computer system in the library instead of looking on the web, even though I know the web is the way of the future. I'm a little old-fashioned, and I like for them to actually go look in journals, newspapers, and magazines. Also, some of the information you get on the web is secondhand, and it tends to be a little watered down, and students really need to be more exposed to first-hand information and to realize that there is a quality information on some of these issues that they're reading about in their books, that they are real issues that people are writing about, other than textbook authors. So that being said, I send them off to the library and I ask them to look for an issue that came up in the reading that we were doing, so that they're getting exposure to the textbook writing and then writing from a journal or periodical or some such source. And then they assemble their sources. So students usually come to class with an article that they've researched on the topic, and then I have all of the students write the name of the article and the main idea from the article on the blackboards in the classroom, the author's name, volume number, other things like that that might be pertinent for other students who would be interested in looking up the same article, because often students see a topic and then they decide they want to work on that topic. So there's a little information sharing in the beginning. So students come in, they write the name of the article, main idea, whatnot, on the board, and then everyone browses around at these different issues that have been brought to class, and they decide on the research project that they're going to do related to that topic. And the activity that I just described really involves a lot of skill. I mean, you know, we're teaching students how to find and write main idea statements, and there's the activity that kind of brings it into practice in a sort of academic way. Instead of just reading a paragraph and writing down the main idea, now they're doing it to do a real research project. So they look at these titles and main ideas, and then they go off and start their own research project. And you can really arrange this however you'd like. I usually have students practice the skills that I'm working on in class, like concept mapping. Maybe they'll go find the article, draw a concept map of that article, which means any number of things. It could be a timeline, it could be clustering. It depends on what the pattern of organization was in that reading that they were doing, and often it's a combination of patterns, which is good for them to see as well. So they draw a concept map, maybe you write a summary, and here they're bringing in all the skills that they learned in class. And then the real key where they start to do some serious research, and even though it's on a very fundamental level, it's really beneficial for them, because we do it as scholars on all levels, all the way up to doctoral dissertations, master's thesis, and whatnot, even writing papers for presentations, is to bring the information from the different sources into one cohesive piece at the end. So it's sort of like writing a little literature review, if you will. Certainly not like a master's thesis, but it's a start. So students are always tempted to summarize the article, and then in the report again, write another summary of the articles. But what I encourage them to do is look for the issues in the article. So, for example, if you have 2 articles on smoking cessation programs, and you find out that, wow, the patch keeps coming up again and again, well, maybe that should be a heading in your report, and under that you can put both of the articles' information on that issue. And so they start to think about discourse communities and how writers respond to each other, and how writers are writing to create a body of knowledge, and then they become writers creating a new body of knowledge with their report. So even, just thinking about using that with freshman students on a skills level, you really get some kind of interesting projects. And so that's one thing I like to do with this reading class that I teach. And I have one more example that I use with a more advanced class. These tend to be sophomore students thinking about deciding on a major for their academic career. And I'm teaching a similar class, reading class, but the needs are very different. So again, the goal is to integrate reading, writing, and research projects in a meaningful way for my students. So what I do with this class is I have 4 content areas that I determine by random, really. I just decide which ones I'm going to do at the beginning of that semester. And in the past I've done biology, sociology, psychology, literature, history, and I arranged my course syllabus into those sections with equal amount of time devoted to each one, say 3 weeks for each section. And then I have a guest speaker come to class from each of those areas and do a little mini lecture on some important content that they determine on their own from their area. It could be, one time I had a gentleman talk about he was doing child psychology, so he decided to talk about Erikson's stages of development, and that was really perfect because it was contained in a 1-hour lecture, and it gave the students some content which they could then apply to their research projects. So in that 3-week period after his lecture, we did all kinds of different research, reading and writing assignments, which then culminated in a short research paper, about a 7 to 10 page research paper. And doing that paper, they learned all kinds of things. They learned how psychologists talk about different issues in the area. They learned more in depth about the theory, Erikson's theory. They learned how psychologists write, how psychologists think. They learned about writing the psychology paper, APA style, and how to put the paper together, write an abstract, and the different sections of the paper, how it should be arranged. And they did this, like I said, for 5 different content areas. So students then, when they went off to their major courses, they knew MLA style, they knew CBE style from biology, they knew APA style, they knew how to arrange papers in the content areas. And I think it was a really beneficial course for students who were thinking about becoming academics. And like I said, these are just 2 examples of how you can create reading, writing, research projects for your students at all levels, and to add some content to what would otherwise be sort of vacuous English courses.